Welcome back and welcome into Shoot the Gap, your IDP podcast for the Fantasy and Frames podcast network and fantasyandframes.com. I'm your host, Nate Markham. With me, as always, is the lovely Jorge, the unflappable Hollywood, and the grumpy Mike. But
boy, if only people had access to the behind the scenes just now.
Exactly.
That would have been worth the price of admission. That we could have put behind the Patreon.
Damn it. I should have came in with some kind of consistency with the names, as like maybe grumpy and Doc and bashful. But I wouldn't have enough superlatives to introduce our guest tonight. Yes, if you're watching live, you see maybe it's a familiar face. If you're following him on Twitter, he doesn't look like that. So I'm shocked. Didn't know who it was. But if you follow him on Twitter, if you read his work at PFF, if you just are fanboying over his just immense depth of knowledge from IDP, then you are going to be in for a treat, because with us today, and always, what? Is that breaking news, John? No, I'm kidding.
Fantasy and Frames just landed the biggest IDP, one of the biggest IDP writers. Fantastic. I didn't even know.
But I will say, if there was one, as much as I would love to have John join the group, I would the intro to his podcast, I think, is the best intro song or whatever you want to call it, 8-bit intro. It is phenomenal. How did you find that? John Macri, by the way, welcome.
Boys, thank you. I appreciate it. I thank you for having me on, and thank you for the kind words as well. That's very kind of you. But as far as the intro goes, I knew I wanted to do kind of like an 8-bit or like a 16-bit theme, like image for the podcast, and then it just kind of clicked after I got the image in. That I could do the intro music like that. So I just took the Sunday Night Football theme, since we have Chris Collinsworth on Sunday Night Football. It made sense since he's the owner of PFF, or the majority owner, I should say, that we use that and turn that into an 8-bit theme. So that's how it started, basically.
It's phenomenal. I think it's wonderful. If you don't follow or listen, pimp it right now if you want. Go for it.
Yeah, so we're the Big Nickel IDP podcast. It's a bi-weekly off-season podcast, and it is in the IDP show feed. So you just got to search the IDP show in Spotify, Apple, whatever you listen to your podcasts, and you will find me in there all off-season long, doing a whole bunch of different stuff and bringing on a lot of different guests as well. So always on IDP.
It is, and I think Kyle was on with you, Hollywood's co-host, and did not get fired the entire episode. So Clearly what he does is he plays up to his level of, I'd say, competition or co-host. Therefore, Hollywood, maybe that's why you have to fire him, is because he's just, out of position. He's
Hollywood.
Gloves are off. I see how this is going to work tonight. we're going back to the bare knuckle days. Okay, I'm in.
Oh, man. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I love Kyle. Kyle's a beauty. He's been on a few times. The one. I'm Kyle's biggest fan yet. Number one fan right here. I should have worn my my Kyle Bellafield jersey tonight, but it was in the wash. So.
Oh man! So if you're tuning in, we're going to start I guess it's a 2-part series, because there's 2 conferences, and we're going to take a look. It's a day 2. Yes, Kyle is a star, not because Sean throwing gloves at even our guest. Sean, tame it down, brother. Come on, look at that.
Sean needs to go back to playing Fortnite with his kids.
Sean is
love how we treat our guests and our fans.
Exactly. Fantastic. Get the hell out of here, you bum. No, he's in for a treat though, because as I was mentioning, we are a total of 12 hours now, maybe into training camps, or at least training camp battles. And again, I use the word superlatives. Everybody has one, as Mike was alluding to. Best shape of his career, making amazing. Juju does look good in KC, if I'm going to bring up something Homer-wise. But regardless, I digress, because this is an IDP show. And without getting into the news, because we got quite a bit of teams to cover, let's take a look at some of the teams, all of the NFC, and decide if there's any position battles, playing time battles, or just general philosophy that might need to get our attention as we enter into draft season. So let's start in the NFC West. John, obviously I'm asking you to play clairvoyant a little bit, trying to figure out what the Arizona Cardinals coaching staff is going to do.
Better be right, John.
Exactly. No pressure whatsoever. But there was rumor. Maybe there was, where there's smoke, there's fire, and vice versa. Is Simmons potentially going to actually place and eat into some of the safety snaps, or was that just positioning talk?
So the way that I interpreted it when it came out a few weeks ago was that they're playing him in that safety role, maybe just to kind of up his coverage ability, like get him used to some of the coverage techniques that you'd see deep downfield from a safety position, because he did struggle in coverage in the NFL, or at least early on in his career so far. But as far as like him actually playing that as a full-time role, I just have a hard time seeing it. It doesn't really make sense to take somebody like a Budda Baker or Jalen Thompson off the field for a guy that is naturally like a linebacker, right? I understand that he plays, all over the field, and he did that at Clemson and blah, blah, blah. But in the NFL, it takes time to become that kind of, the common term is Swiss Army knife, right? You don't just naturally fall into that. So it would also be a weird choice, because it would mean they'd have to start Nick Vigil full-time as by choice, right? Which I don't think makes much sense either. So, for me, I think what the Cardinals, if that's what they're doing, if that's their game plan for the offseason, I tend to think maybe they're getting a little too cute with Isaiah Simmons, just as far as trying to unlock all of his potential at once, instead of kind of focusing on one thing, like what his primary focus should be, which is linebacker, and making sure that he's great at that first before trying him somewhere else. So I think the safety thing might be a little bit of smoke, but yeah, we'll see. They've surprised us before, obviously.
I read a report from Cardinals, one of the beat reporters. They were interviewing the defensive backs coach, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he basically said Isaiah Simmons is a better player when he sees more of the field in front of him, and we're going to put him in a position where he plays best. So it goes into kind of both things that you were saying there, John. Like, maybe this is just him being able to see things from far away. Therefore, when he's thrust back inside during the season, he has a better idea of what's going on around him. Conversely,
right,
if we're going to put him in a position, wink, that he plays best at, that could be leaning that way too. So it's interesting right there.
And
it is.
And
yeah.
I guess,
go ahead, Mike. No,
I guess my only concern is when you take a player like that, or when you take any player and you put him in all sorts of different positions, that just is going to lower his efficiency, and you're taking him out of potential plays. I think it just lowers his floors and his efficiency and his ability to get tackles. So you're putting him in all sorts of different places. And I still don't understand. You got the Cardinals who've spent 2 first-round picks on off-ball linebackers, and you're not going to play him at the position. You're just going to play him everywhere. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Yeah. But I don't like the whole moving around. He'll probably settle in at linebacker, but with what we've said, I mean, what the Cardinals have done with these players, I think he played just under 200 snaps in the slot last season. So still managed over 100 tackles, but if he can still just concentrate on off-ball linebacker, that would certainly be much better for his IDP prospects and his production.
Tell you what would also help is if they had a push up front. If Lecky Fotu and Zach Allen can take blockers off of Collins and Isaiah Simmons, I think that it alludes back to what you just said, Jorge, as a defensive backs coach. Hey, we like when he can see more of the field. Well, when you don't have blockers in your face after 2 seconds after the snap, it makes it easy to read, recognize, and diagnose. And I think maybe that's one of the areas. But another key element is their pass rush, and that's another thing that'll help ease his burden. And Hollywood, is there a pass rush realistically in Arizona? I mean, JJ Watt, Marcus Golden, are you excited about either of those whatsoever?
I wouldn't say excited. They're being the veterans that they are. They have some value, right? They're going to have, they know the nuances of the game. Their experience there. But you're right. They've got to have that pass rush up front, I think, to help the backside, right? The linebackers, the safeties. So whatever they do with Simmons, they clearly want to clean up some things in front of him, right? They want to give him some free lanes. They want to use him in multiple situations to try to take advantage of matchups. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, he went, what was it I was looking at just now? That was a big jump last year for him. He went from 300 plus something snaps as a rookie to over 1,000. That's a pretty sizable jump from year one to year two. So I think the snap count kind of stay, or reps kind of stay the same, but I would feel like I'm going to see a more relaxed, more confident player out of Simmons in year three.
Yeah. Moving from Arizona to San Francisco in the West, as far as position battles, that's the one thing that I can tell you. There's not a ton necessarily that stand out to me. Obviously, I'm not worried about, Kimiko Toure stepping in or Carrie Hyder or Drake Jackson, or am I? Is there a chance that one of those three are going to line up opposite Bosa on that, that outside and actually have any type of IDP relevance this year whatsoever? Or is it strictly just going to be Bosa? Jorge?
When you're reading the reports coming out of camp where you have people like Samson Ibukam, who played opposite of Bosa for the majority of last year, and other coaches saying, yeah, Drake Jackson is exactly the guy that we want. He's exactly what we've been looking for. You invested a second round pick in him. This is the guy. This is the guy. And I'm like, what's the selling point for you? And I think coaches see that, and they see his play on the field. And, again, they invested a second round pick. Ibukam wasn't able to get it done for fantasy purposes last year, opposite Bosa. The one player who I thought was going to have upside a couple of years ago was Carrie Hyder. And then when he went to Seattle last year, I thought he was going to be able to do something. It just didn't work out that way. I don't know whether that was just because the money situation or what have you. But he finds himself back in San Francisco. But I think they made this pick for a reason with Drake Jackson, and I would be surprised if they didn't give him an opportunity. Probably rotate him in the beginning of the season, but then as the season progresses, you'll see him get some more playing time there, would be my guess.
Yeah. John, anything to add on Drake Jackson?
Yeah, I actually like Drake Jackson quite a bit. I think he's one of the bendier pass rushers from this past class. He was really, really good at that speed move up to the outside, and I think he will rotate in and get some work. I do think about like Eric Armstead as well, just as somebody who did start to play inside more last year, just out of necessity because Javon Kinlaw went down, and I think that necessity does still exist, like as far as him playing inside. But I do think there's a potential for him to eat some of those edge snaps as well, because he's kind of the guy that can do both. And I think early downs, at least, you might see Eric Armstead as the edge, and then move inside on pass rush downs, and that's where the Drake Jacksons or Samson Ebukam. I mean, they brought in a lot of edge defenders. They brought, like you said, Kimoko Toure, Carrie Hyder. I think Charles Omenihu is still there. There's some guys
as well.
Exactly. Yeah. There's some guys that, have experience in that role. I don't think all of them are going to make the team, but they're all also the ones that do are going to be eating into each other's workload a little bit. So I worry a bit about Drake Jackson for year one, but I do like him a lot for Dynasty. And I think, I think he'll be a really solid starter there.
Yeah, you are right. They looking at the list of the players, everybody, and had some significance last year in some capacity. Kimiko Toure in limited opportunities was decent. Omenihu was all these, and then you have 3 first-round picks in Bosa, Kinlaw, and Armstead. So, it's still the 49ers.
And I think Macri hit it spot on. Armstead's kind of the wild card, right? Because he can kick inside, he can play outside, and I think he's going to do a little bit of both of those. He kind of played better when he was on the inside, I felt like. But if you can get him and Kinlaw and you got Bosa, then that takes a little bit of the pressure off of Jackson. And Jackson is he's a pretty good pass rusher, man. I'm kind of with Macri. He's going to have a little growing pains this year, but going forward, I think he's going to be the dude there.
Yeah, I think with Jackson, I think he's one of the guys that his measurables and his ability matches, because he had what, almost a near 15% pass rush rate, almost a 30% win rate. So I think those metrics could translate over. And when you do play alongside Bosa, he's going to gather some attention. So I think they're going to say, let's load up, let's block Bosa and let's see what this kid can do. I'm not expecting 70% of the snaps for Jackson out, but if you're kind of in a deeper like best ball type league, I think he could be a good best ball target, because he could be a 30-40% snap guy. 4 to 6 sacks, I don't think is out of the realm of potential.
No, not at all. And we'll go from one second round edge rusher to another one in Seattle. That's Boye Mafe, who realistically, I think of all the spots to land in long term, this could be very beneficial. In the short term, Mike, I see similar situations with Jackson, and that he's going to have to beat out someone. And is that, going to be Uchenna Nwosu? That's where he's most suited, or is he capable? And this is the one thing that, John, I'll ask you as well. In addition, is he best suited on that outside linebacker type with their conversion to this 3-4, or can he slide into like the Shelby Harris role if Shelby Harris has any type of issues whatsoever? Mike, I'll let you start with Mafe versus Nwosu. The battle is there.
I think I've with rookies and veterans, I'm always going to side with the veterans. So I think Nwosu probably is going to get that first crack. I think what helps though is that Seattle really is bereft of any type of pass rush. So I think everybody's going to get a chance. I mean, Carlos Dunlop's gone. He went to Kansas City. So, I think they're going to use everybody. I mean, I think it was either Darrell Taylor or Rashawn Green are gone. So it'll be Darrell Taylor. And then I think they're just going to use probably a heavy rotation of guys. So it's going to be probably one of those situations where you may just want to stay away from it. I like Mafe's long-term upside, and Nwosu had a chance in LA. It just didn't really, I don't think, panned out. But obviously he became expendable with some of the additions, obviously to Klumac. But, I thought Nwosu was going to break out last year. I don't, from a pass rush standpoint, didn't really happen. He'll get his chances. But, yeah, I like Mafe from a more long-term. But I think for this season, I think they're going to probably more – Carroll seems like a veteran guy. I'm going to lean on some of the veterans or some of the experienced guys. So that's kind of where I'm probably staying away from the whole situation, honestly, for the time being, outside of, maybe some deeper leagues. That's kind of the way I see it.
Gotcha. John, is Mafe just best suited for that? I mean, is there a chance that he takes snaps on the interior a little bit more so?
I mean, I guess there's always a chance. He didn't really do that at Minnesota. He was always just kind of like he was always an edge outside the tackle kind of player. But I mean, he's a big, a decent sized guy, 6'4", 260, somewhere around there. And he's got the athleticism to, mostly dominate on the edge. So it's kind of limited inside, but not to say that he can't do it. I just see him more as an edge type guy. And I'm with Mike too. I think it's a bit of a rotation situation over there in Seattle, which is what they've always kind of done. And they have a lot of names of guys that I just don't really trust in full-time roles. Darrell Taylor and LJ Collier and Alton Robinson, guys like that who, and Uchenna Nwosu as well. And I guess if I did have to pick one for this year, it'd probably be Nwosu as well. But I do like Mafe, long term. But just to expect a rookie to hit the ground running and be the guy to target in a draft outside of a really, really deep draft, it's a tougher call. So I would be staying away from it as well.
Yeah, I get the feeling that a lot of these position battles that we're talking about are intended for the deeper leagues. But sometimes, you know what though, people listening, if they're tuning into an IDP only podcast, there's a decent chance they play in a more in-depth league than just your traditional 4 IDP guys at the back end of the regular draft.
Yeah.
But if they want to look at someone from the Rams, obviously there's some pretty wholesale names that we're not going to even discuss. Never did I think we were going to discuss the Nick Scott versus Taylor Rapp position battle, which is sad. But the Rams have proven that they can support good safety production. And I don't know if that's going to be Nick Scott. I mean, he showed last year, Hollywood, towards the end of the season, really to the playoffs. They trusted him with that role. Is it his job, or is there going to be a legitimate position battle? And if whoever wins, do you even move them up, or do you think there's just going to be rotation? A lot of questions there, Hollywood. Good luck.
Yeah, I know, and it's kind of a loaded question, right? A little bit. I mean, I think for me, it's going to be I think there is going to be a little bit of a battle there, and I can also see a little bit of a rotation. But for me, I think I'm going Taylor Rapp if I'm in drafts, or especially redrafts. If that's where I'm looking, then I'm taking Rapp for sure, a little bit higher than I would Scott, because I feel like Rapp's a little more proven. He's done it 2 out of 3 years. Of course, the 1 year he was hurt, right? He only played 9 games, I think it was. So bounced back last year, pretty good in coverage. Already got 7 picks and 17 pass deflections in 3 years. So. And he'll hit you. So I think Scott is a really good insurance policy. And I'm sure they want to see what he can do. And we've seen this kind of trend before with supporting 3 safeties, right? That's kind of the new thing a little bit. Now, the one thing that I'll throw you a curveball here, usually when you're running 3 safeties, that generally means you're pretty weak at linebacker, right? And with Bobby Wagner in town, you're not weak at linebacker. So that would be my one monkey wrench right there, because I don't know that you run 3 safeties with him in town. So I do think there could be a rotation of sorts, but I like Rapp here.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anybody really pushing the door open to draft Taylor Rapp or Nick Scott necessarily, outside of maybe as your late DB3, or am I mistaken? One of you guys actually higher on Taylor Rapp than what I may have assumed.
No, I like Rapp. And can we officially close the door on Terrell Burgess? Is Terrell Burgess? Can he?
I mean, he's very versatile. It's just he just doesn't produce anything that is really relevant, you know.
And I think I'm going to have to put Ernest Jones now in my top 10 linebackers. I read Jordan Rodriguez put a huge article out on Ernest Jones, and I was calling him like the next great linebacker, and playing alongside Wagner
can't hurt. And not hurt.
Now, I will say on our lads, you know, when we look at depth chart, in fact, several depth charts I'm looking at, Nick Scott is listed as the 1.
Yeah,
you know, whether that's just early training camp talk, who knows.
I don't like to badmouth things, but our lads is probably the last depth chart you might want to look at.
Really?
I think so. From what I've remembered, I don't think there's our.
John,
I don't know.
What depth, do you use a depth chart, or do you just go off the old noggin?
Our lads is not one I really go to.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't look at those ones either. We kind of have like within PFF, we kind of have our own depth charts that we build for teams. There's a lot of people that provide feedback on that, and those go to the website as well. But I don't know if they're accessible through the website other than just employee access. But that's kind of what I use, just because I trust those ones a little bit more. But Nick Scott, that might have been carried over from the playoffs too, right? Jordan Fuller was out, and they brought Eric Weddle in, so they just snuck him in there. But I think it would be Rapp as well. Not crazy about Nick Scott.
Yeah, I'm not either, really. We spent way too much time on Taylor Rapp and Nick Scott. 2, I'm glad to say that you said that there's maybe no access to that, because I was going to be very disappointed in myself for not finding said source. But maybe it's one of those things that maybe progresses into something that is accessible for us PFF members. Maybe we shall see. Maybe we unlock something tonight. The Bears need to unlock something on both sides of the ball. And the way to do so possibly is not throwing away the key to pass rush and Robert Quinn. But that's the talk, is that he's up for trade, or they see a potential for him on the outs. John, is if you look at the rest of whatever you want to call the Chicago Bears pass rush, if that's, Al-Qadim Muhammad, who they brought over from Indy, who had I think he had a decent season, nothing spectacular, but, familiar face at least to come along. Gibson, I mean, is there anything on the Bears pass rush that is even enticing to you whatsoever?
Not particularly. I think it'll end up becoming a volume thing. Like I don't think it's crazy to assume that as long as Robert Quinn doesn't get traded, that he's in for the heaviest workload of the bunch, even at whatever he is, 76 years old, or sorry, 32 years old. But and I think there's some familiarity with Matt Eberflus bringing Al-Qadim Muhammad in, right? He must have liked what he did for him in Indy. And you're right. I think he was, he wasn't great. He wasn't bad. He was just, he was an NFL player. He was reliable. He didn't make major mistakes. He did what he had to do to keep his job. And looking at how thin the Bears defensive line is, I mean, I think it makes sense that he gets in some significant work there. And Travis Gibson feels more to me like a designated pass rusher. He pretty much, he overachieved last season just because he didn't play that much. And especially looking at some of his more advanced metrics like pressure rate, just being slightly above average, but like win rate was below average for him. So, unless he has a big jump in his pass rush ability, which is not obviously out of the realm of possibilities, but I wouldn't be betting too heavily on Travis Gibson either. I think just because it might be another, even for as thin as that group is, I think it might be another limited role to it, like being a DPR for them on passing downs.
Yeah, another team that lacks a legit pass rusher outside of maybe, like you said, Quinn. We go to Minnesota, who, if there's a team that's not lacking pass rush, or at least the upside for that, are the Vikings. But I don't want to talk about any of them because I don't see a true. I mean, unless Hicks or Kendricks is hurt, Asamoah might, get some playing time there. It's not a battle. No one's stepping in front of Danielle Hunter. It's at safety that, Mike, I'm going to address the elephant in the room here. Is Louis Cine the starter at free safety, or do you think there's actually going to be a battle maybe with Cameron Bynum? Or I can't believe I've seen reports that someone said that maybe Andrew Booth might step into that role. But here's your spew fest on Louis Cine. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, as a free safety, I mean, it seems like Cine is going to be the guy. I mean, he's going to be the guy. I personally don't like him as an IDP producer. But when you see those three guys, it's like, all right, why not give the rookie a chance?
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't expecting you to wax poetic about Louis Cine, unfortunately. But
I'm trying to figure out, is it Cine?
Or
I've been saying it wrong the whole time.
Have you been saying Cine?
Now I feel bad. I've been saying Scene.
That's how I've heard it both ways, though.
Oh, okay. Is it?
Yes, Louis Cine.
Okay. I was like, oh shit, I hate when I pronounce guys' names.
I've seen him enough at Georgia. It's Louis Cine, trust me.
Okay, good. Because someone else I listened to pronounced it that way, but I didn't ever go straight. I should have just went straight to the Georgia broadcast and just done it that way.
No, it's not a big. I was just panicking because I've been saying it a lot, but I do like Louis Cine. But and I like Bynum as well. I think he performed well in a small sample size, and maybe he gets a first crack at it in camp. But I think ultimately it's Cine's job to lose, right, as a first round pick.
And I totally have a feeling he's going to prove me wrong. So I'm totally well prepared to be wrong on him, and him playing maybe up front and just being this world beater guy. So. Georgia, boy, that Georgia defense, boy, did
crazy. They seem to be fine.
Bring over a lot of NFL guys.
He's going to be the heir apparent to Harrison Smith too, right? I mean, Smith is getting up there in age, a local boy from down the road here. But I mean, who knows how much longer he's really going to play? He's what, 33, 34, if I'm not mistaken.
Gotta be up there.
So, a couple of years at best, I think Singh gets to play alongside of him, learn tricks of the trade a little bit. I think he's there apparent, but in the meantime, I think he can play that free safety spot. And with Harrison there, I would like to think that's a pretty good 1-2 combo there.
Mm-hmm. All right, John. One or the other. I guess we'll say for like a dynasty safety rookie, Lewis Seen or Jaquan Brisker.
So I believe I have Seen ahead of Brisker just because I do like him a little bit more like as a talent. It's close though. They're basically 2A and 2B for me. I mean, Kyle Hamilton is number one. But Brisker, I think for this season, he's at least in the more like IDP productive system for safeties, right? If he's going to be the guy that rotates down and plays closer to the line of scrimmage, it's a nice role to be in, that Kyrie Willis role that was decent for him. So, but yeah, long term, I do like Seen. I like Seen quite a bit.
Nice. Well, we went from one Georgia product to another in Green Bay. Jorge, Quay Walker. A lot of talk pre-training camps that he's already impressing. I don't know if, with voluntary OTAs and I'm sure in the weight room, and he's probably already hosting people over for, game night, and he's taking the lead. Is there going to be a battle with, God, I hate to even say their names, Chris Barnes, heaven forbid. I don't even want to say Ty Summers' name, but what do you think? What do you think? Quay Walker going to take it and run?
Yeah. I mean, when your comp is your fellow linebacker and Devondre Campbell, I mean, like, are you taking Devondre Campbell off the field? No? Okay, well, sorry, Barnes, you're not going to – it's just not going to happen. I'm sorry. I would be very surprised if he was not starting week one.
Oh, yeah. No, I would be more shocked at that. But there's a second – there's also another name. Devontae Wyatt, when he was drafted, you imagine – is Jaron Reed not even an option, John? Jaron Reed's not going to stop Devontae Wyatt potentially, or is there even IDP relevance outside of like defensive tackle only leagues?
I think there is. Yeah, I think I like Wyatt. I think for IDP between him and Jordan Davis, Wyatt's the guy that I want. Just because he has that pass rush ability, right? Davis is more of like a nose tackle type. As much of an athletic freak as he is at that size, he's still, probably not going to play a full-time role, and who knows what his role will look like. Well, we'll get to that. I don't want to with spoilers for the NFC East, but yeah, I think Devontae Wyatt is a better option than Jaron Reed. We'll see how much that shows in year one, like just as far as how they divvy up the time. I think Wyatt's a better pass rusher. I mean, Reed had, he had a pretty good season in 2018, just as far as sack production goes, but he was a perfect example of why these guys with low advanced metrics as pass rushers, but high sack rates are bound to regress, right? And he really has since then, and he hasn't upped his ability as a pass rusher. So he's kind of shown to be a pretty poor player. And, he figures, at least to me, in my eyes, he's more of a depth piece, Jaron Reed, where Devontae Wyatt makes a lot more sense as like a true kind of 3-tech that could dominate there next to Kenny Clark. And whether it happens in year one or not, I don't know, but I think ultimately that ends up being the case at some point down the road.
That's a nasty front line.
And Wes, I'm going to butcher this last name, Wes Hadakowitz. I mean, he's already got Quay Walker spotted with working with the first team unit. So,
okay.
Who?
Yeah, Wes,
beat writer for the Packers.
Yeah,
okay.
He's a
I thought you were saying this is a player that's starting
ahead
of Quay Walker.
No,
yeah,
Wes,
you don't know
That's
that.
the person you're talking about?
Does that really sound like a football player? No, he's a reporter for the Packers website.
Gotcha.
So
DeBrickashaw Ferguson. Okay, you never know.
Just thinking of that name. Yeah,
you never know.
So yeah, he's already seeing Walker running with the first team. So again, we're second day in, but
yeah,
not to go on.
I'm taking the upside of Walker over the other linebackers.
I saw there was a college player whose name is DeColdest. and I forget his last name, and he got signed by an HVAC company to be their sponsor.
That's
because
amazing.
if you know what's the coldest, it's going to be him, and that's his real name, and I'm not making this up.
Yeah,
So,
he plays for Nebraska. Yeah.
there you go.
Well,
And I should have known. Hollywood.
well,
would know.
hopefully he goes out for the draft next year. But I mean, I think we all have to draft bumper pool, right?
Cool.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, what a name, bumper pool. I mean,
I gotta love the names. A name that we might all grow to love, Mike, is Aiden Hutchinson. Question is right now, is there going to be a battle for snaps once Romeo Acquire returns? Because I think he's on the pup with an Achilles or recovering from an Achilles injury. We know Charles Harris is working on the other side, but with this extra little amount of time with Hutchinson over Acquire, do you think Acquire, when he comes back, will actually take any of the snaps, or is this just might be full steam ahead for Aiden?
I mean, it's got to be full steam ahead, right? First team running with the first team. He's not going to, take a step back. I don't think he doesn't seem to be this type of player that's me like, hey, I'm just happy to be here. And, when Acquire comes back, it's going to be no, I think he's going to run with it and take it. And I think it's Acquire that probably will probably lose out. I mean, he's the second pick overall. I don't see any reason why you'd want to limit his snaps.
Right.
I mean, he has the ability, has the talent, has the skill, has the metrics. I mean, you watch that championship game. He's got a really quick swim move, quick off the snap, will blow up your blockers, and just can kind of do it all. Now, I'm not expecting double-digit sacks. I think that's a lot to expect from a rookie, but I mean, I would be surprised if he got 600-700 snaps right off the bat as a rookie, and hit that 6 to 8 mark.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I'll take Hutchinson over Acquire any day.
Yeah, I mean, I would have as well. I think that his, I don't know if it slowed recovery, but it sure seemed like there was this optimistic approach that he was going to be available for, week one. And I don't know if I ever believed that entirely. Still don't know where I'm at, because right now we've learned that Achilles are essentially unpredictable. I mean, Cam Akers can return. I mean, granted, I can return an average 2.3 yards per carry if I want. I couldn't. Actually, that's a lie. Take it back. I probably couldn't do that. But you get the hyperbole in that. Hutch is going to blow up some O linemen. I can't wait till next week when he gets to line up against Penny Sewell and see how that goes. That's when you want to talk about. Just wait. As soon as they'll have tape, and he'll have one move that he's going to slip past Sewell, and the internet's going to explode.
Twitter's going to blow up, and it's like, there's your DL1. That's it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Good seeing you, Gator.
But so you said 600 plus snaps for Hutchinson. John, let's go to Atlanta. Let's look at another rookie in Arnold Ebiketie. Will he get 600 plus snaps, you think, this year with them?
Man, if he's healthy, I don't see any reason why they shouldn't give him that. Just looking at everybody else that they have on that roster, it's like it is brutal. Like, they were bad last year, and it's slightly better by bringing in Ebiketie and Lorenzo Carter, kind of. He's probably going to start as well. But they drafted D'Angelo Malone in the 3rd round, who's a decent player out of Western Kentucky, but. Man, if they don't just lean into Ebiketie, throw him into the fire right away, I don't know. They're actively trying to tank then for a quarterback in 2023, because that pass rush was abysmal last season. Like, literally no production from them all season long. It was brutal. So
weren't they last in sacks? Did they basically
by a lot
finish with a sack a game? It was basically a sack a game, like
horrible.
17,
I think it was
18
last
total.
Yeah.
So you don't think Malone kind of eats into some of the rotation, because he's a pretty good pass rusher at Western Kentucky?
Yeah, I think he can for sure, right? I don't think Lorenzo Carter is anything special or to be afraid of. So, I have no problems with getting Malone some work in there as well. And why not start both rookies and see what they got? It's going to be a trial by fire just because the team's so bad. But Ebiketie and D'Angelo Malone is still somehow better than what they had last year.
I think the big battle is going to pretty much be at the linebacker spot opposite Deion Jones. I mean, that'll be the thing to watch. I mean, who's going to get in there? Is it going to be Walker? How much is it going to be Anderson? Is it going to be Rashaan Evans? So I think that's going to be the one battle to watch.
I almost feel like it's Evans early because he has the familiarity with Pease and Arthur Smith. So I think he gets the first look. But I feel like I've repeated myself for the last few weeks. If Evans was going to be anything at all, Tennessee wouldn't have let him go. They would have given him his fifth-year option and kept him in, especially with their needs at linebacker. They would have kept him. So I think he gets the early look, but I think Anderson gets a look if Evans can't cut the mustard, so to speak.
I mean, maybe Atlanta, they're just hoping that between Evans and Kwiatkowski that one of the two can return, 2.5 years ago, I'd say talent, if that's the right word to use. Probably not, but you get the idea or the drift that maybe you have some depth, which if Kyle Pitts is listening, doesn't matter if he's listening. He said they're Super Bowl bound potentially. So what do we know? He's the one that's playing. All we're doing is talking about it. So, man, put your bets in. Probably like 20,000 to 1 right now for Atlanta. So we'll all be rich. We'll all be going to Disney with Mike next time.
Yeah, that's right.
We'll have our own Coke bottle thing that you got. I jokingly wanted to mention in New Orleans, Jorge, the Daniel Sorensen, Bryce Thompson battle, just mostly so I could take one more dig at Sorensen before he's finally just washed away. Kansas City fan here, John, in case you're wondering. And so many a countless days where he makes me so mad. But
he won that game in the playoffs against the Browns. Mike,
Sorensen.
If it makes you feel any better, I was even kind of appalled at the whole way that the no call and just everything in general. Now, granted, yes, you should have stopped a 5'7", 40 quarterback and maybe preserve the victory. But we don't need to talk about that. That is neither here nor there. What we do want to talk about is there is a chance that Marcus May might be suspended for a few games. He's got this DUI thing. I think it's a 3-game suspension. Is there anybody show your hands if you would actually start either of these safeties in those 3 games if you have 4 defensive backs on each team? No? Perfect. We can move on.
You know what they say? They say don't go chasing waterfalls, right? So
that's exactly right. Wait.
That's what I'm talking about.
See?
There you go.
Love it.
I don't even have a great sense.
If you have to start either Bryce Thompson or Sorensen, aim for the bushes.
32
exactly.
Oh my God, we're back to back. This is fantastic. I love it. I love it.
Hey guys, I got to run. I got a one-on-one with a Patreon, but before I leave, just remember, pimps don't cry, baby.
Sure. Hey, just remember though. Remember for your one-on-one, Gators bitches better be wearing jimmies. So take care of yourself. Stay safe out there. Thanks,
Later,
Hollywood.
Yeah.
Man, it's sad to see him go, but
we love to watch him leave.
We love to watch him. You know what's equally as sad? The opposite edge rush in Carolina from Brian Burns. My opinion. I shouldn't be. Am I too down on Yetur Gross-Matos, or is there a chance that he actually can fill that little bit of gap there?
I carried the water for him as a rookie. I think I don't think I can still quit him. I'm hoping he's my heart is full and I want him to be something, but my head says maybe not. But I think all of us, sometimes are also too quick to throw rookies away after what is that smirk? What are you look like you're about to unload. You're just
just listening. I could tell this is a very emotional.
Yeah, I did. I really liked him in his year.
As long as I've known him.
I was waiting for him to break in too. My heart's telling me
he's
yes.
about to blow me up here. What's going on?
With my body.
But I don't know. It's all sorts of ugly in Carolina with their defense as a whole. I don't
that
know.
says it.
I don't know.
You said it right there. Brian Burns. John, does Brian Burns drop a little bit in from if they had retained Hassan Reddick, would he be higher in your rankings, or do you take that into account with someone of Burns' talent?
Not really. I still like Burns, like just on
Mhm.
his own as an edge rusher. I think he's talented enough, and he could win off his own merits that he can produce. I know he's never hit double-digit sacks so far in his career, but he's going to get the volume. He will get there eventually. He's a good enough pass rusher to hit that mark, and I don't think it matters too much about the guys around him. I mean, maybe if Derek Brown can take a step up as well as Gross Matos, and they brought in Matt Ioannidis, who I do think is kind of an underrated interior defender as a pass rusher as well. So, there's a little bit of help there, but yeah, my expectations are low right now for Gross Matos, unfortunately.
That's okay. Jorge, let's talk about Tampa. Let's look at the safety position there. Obviously, there's a role to be filled. Right now, there's a conversation between Mike Edwards, Keanu Neal, Logan Ryan. Logan Ryan obviously can play 100 different positions if he wants to, I guess. Question is going to be is with a couple of the changes in Tampa and not just personnel, but coaching as well. How do you expect that safety group next to Antoine Winfield to play out?
I will never, ever doubt Logan Ryan's ability to do anything on that football field. For me, I think he's, you mentioned Mike Edwards or Keanu Neal. No, it's Logan Ryan. He's going to take that free safety spot. I just feel he's just so talented. He played safety, then he switched to cornerback, and he went back to safety. He's so versatile. He's a tackling machine. See no reason why he can't play, coverage in Tampa Bay.
I don't either. I'm obviously a fan. If there's anything if there's an area that I don't 100%, I'm optimistic that on the outside, Joe Tryon, I guess I have to say Joe Tryon, Shoyinka.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Is an interesting case. I wonder, so John, answer me as far as Logan Hall. He's more of the interior defense. He can slide inside and stay out just a little bit. So does that mean that you were overly optimistic, or at least optimistic about the evolution or the ascension of Joe Tryon Shoyinka?
So as far as Tryon, I like him because I think there's the path to snaps is as clear as it's going to be there. Right. I mean, he's going to get a ton of opportunity to prove that he was worth a first round pick a year ago. So I'm not as crazy about him as a talent. What the hell do I know as far as NFL evaluations go? But I'm not I didn't think he was, a first round talent, just especially in comparison to somebody like Azeez Ojulari, who I did like a lot more. I thought he was a better edge player, but he didn't really show a lot as a rookie. They gave him a lot of opportunity, even with JPP there. They found ways to get him rushing from, A-gap blitzes and things like that. And he didn't really produce great numbers. There's obviously going to be some development there. He could get better. So I'm not writing him off or anything like that, but I do think that the volume alone should really help his IDP prospects. The interior guys, Vita Vea, I love as an NFL player. Hasn't really worked as an IDP, but Logan Hall is a good pass rusher from the interior. Akeem Hicks is a solid veteran there. There's some guys that can push the pocket at least, and maybe open up some opportunities for Tryon as well if he isn't, hitting that expectation of an elite pass rusher like a Shaq Barrett opposite him, for example. So,
yeah, that's kind of the mentality that I had a little bit with him. I've heard mentions of this next step from people that can evaluate talent a lot better than I can, which doesn't take much because clearly I just, do what I can do. But I can tell you the one thing that didn't need evaluation is just how good Micah Parsons was last year. And that takes us to the NFC East in the last conference we're going to talk about, or division, and the Dallas Cowboys. And Micah Parsons last year obviously had to step in and play that Swiss Army knife that you were talking about a little bit to the utmost degree. Randy Gregory now is gone. DeMarcus Lawrence is back, hopefully healthy. What about that opposite side, Mike? I mean, it's, you want to be optimistic to think that somebody can step up and that they don't have to rely on Parsons to have more of the pass rush element, which I'm sure fantasy owners would love him to have more of. But is it Dorrance Armstrong? Is it, Sam Williams? I don't want to say Fowler, but is there a rotation there? Or do you feel comfortable that you think Sam could step right up or
I think there's probably going to be a little bit of a rotation. I think Dorrance probably may have a leg up. A pretty solid pass rush rate. He was a little over 10%, but I think he's probably going to get that first crack. He was a pretty good tackler, decent defender against the run. So, I think he's probably going to get that first crack. I'd say Williams is probably going to be third, and they brought in, Fowler's the free agent guy. So I think he's probably going to get the snaps just because he was the free agent, but I'm probably not expecting a whole lot from him as well. Parsons already is kind of playing all over just in those few days of clips that you see, and he's probably still going to be a beast. So, but I think if Parsons is playing all over, that unfortunately brings his efficiency down. Because when you saw him as an all linebacker, his tackle rate was where you wanted to be as an elite defender. But when he was playing the edge, he got the pressure rate, but that tackle efficiency dipped below 10%. And that's actually where, edge rushers are. That's typically what you want to see from your edge rusher. But as a linebacker, overall it's going to bring his efficiency down. So that kind of stinks from an IDP standpoint. Obviously, if you're in a league that rewards the hits and rewards sacks and all that, and that's obviously good. But from tackle numbers and things like that definitely limits the floor for him.
Nice, John. Real quick question: as far as when you're writing and giving information to your people that follow your work and look at it like all of us do. Do you cater to any specific format, or are you just really kind of like saying, here's the grand scheme of IDP, take it for what you will?
Yeah, that's what I kind of do, because there's so many different leagues with different scoring and things like that. So I try to provide tackle number, just tackle numbers specifically and sack numbers, right? And then people could see that and then say, oh, okay, I'm looking for more sacks. Who are the guys that are going to get me more sacks? Who are looking for more tackles? Who are the guys that are going to get me more tackles? So not really catering to a specific scoring system. When I do my combined rankings with edge and defensive interior and linebacker and safeties and all that, I'll put a scoreboard, a template of what I'm kind of basing that off of. And it's typically pretty balanced just in how it plays out among the top scorers and how they compare to offense. But I don't expect anybody to utilize, that exact scoring, because it varies so wildly across so many different IDP leagues. But
what? We don't all have a uniform scoring metric? Well,
this is news, right?
This is breaking news. Breaking news. John Macri says everything's going to be the same, one across, which would be great. But I think it's blown out of proportion just how, crazy people can get over, play whatever you want. If you want to give me 1 billion points for a tackle and 2.5 million for a half tackle, guess what? I'm going to learn the rules and I'm going to play that to my league. Kind of like with certain positions. John, we'll talk about defensive tackle. Defensive tackle is not a position that many of us want to roster, but it is viable when you have a person like Godzilla in Jordan Davis and playing alongside Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave and Derek Barnett and Brandon Graham and Josh Sweat. And John, is this Philadelphia? I mentioned this today. I think this Philadelphia front line, however rotation is the best and the deepest in the NFL. Number one, what would you think?
Oh, I think they're right up there. Especially depth wise, right? There's guys that would be starters on 31 other teams, right? So, it's a really nice line what they've done there, and I think for NFL purposes and what they're trying to do, I think that's great. For IDP, it becomes a little bit of a mess to try to figure out who's going to get the majority of the snaps, and whoever does, it might not be the ideal mark that somebody like a DeMarcus Lawrence or a Nick Bosa might get. It'll be less than that because there's other guys that need to get on the field, but it makes for a really strong defensive line for the Eagles, at least.
If there was a name on that defensive line, is there anybody that you're actively targeting? Maybe Hassan Reddick?
So Reddick, I think could be good. I worry about where he's going in drafts, just because I think people are drafting him highly based on what he did last season. He had were some really good sack totals. I don't think he's necessarily as great of a pass rusher as what those sack totals said. And I think a lot of it was volume based, and I worry that he might not get that exact volume in Philadelphia because of that rotation, like you said. So I'm missing on him because of the ADP or just where I've seen him go in drafts. So I like Javon Hargrave. That's the guy that I like in DT required leagues. I think he's a really good interior pass rusher, which is not something that's very common in the NFL and for IDP. So if you can find those guys, then you attack that position and try to build up with there. So you can at least get some consistency from an inconsistent position.
Absolutely. Very well said. Jorge, going back to the linebacking group there in Philly, again, another, I say kind of conundrum, just simply because you have TJ Edwards, who last year, obviously that was his coming out party. Kazir White has been just interesting. I think a lot of that has to do, I think the reason I know Kazir White and have followed him so closely is because of that defensive back eligibility that he gathered or garnered on Sleeper. We know this is a cheat code for that, and neither here nor there, don't care. Take advantage, like we said. But now we add Nicolby Dean. And like we were talking about before, the one thing with Nicolby Dean, wherever he landed, is that he was going to fight for a starting opportunity because he's diverse in all facets. And yet, here's two players that both kind of are, above average in coverage. And even TJ Edwards showed that he can stop the run when needed last year. Well, do you think there's a chance that Dean actually takes that role, or is it just going to be a rotation that you're going to want to avoid?
Just rotation. Let me put it like this. Let me not answer your question by answering your question in a not answering your question kind of way. I have no idea. Therefore, I am just avoiding linebackers from Philadelphia. Period. If I'm drafting my linebacker positions, in the next few weeks or in the coming month, there are better linebacker cores that are more clear cut than this Philadelphia one is right now. Before Nicolby Dean was drafted, I was very excited about getting Kazir White. I thought he was going to have a great year in Philadelphia. Now you don't know. Now you had Dean. Now, granted, there's the injury. How much are they going to work him into playing? I did not see the training camp reports the past few days. I don't know if he's actually participating in drills or he's just doing, something on the side. Yeah, it's a tough one. I really don't have the great answer for you other than I just would just avoid just for the sake of uncertainty.
And that's okay. That's the nice thing about this time. None of us really know. I mean, and I'll ask John, you and Mike both. TJ Edwards, are you higher than consensus or lower than consensus?
So I'd actually have to pull up where I have him, but I do like the situation. I think there is some murkiness to it for sure, but I think whoever does emerge there and plays that full-time role, I think it's a really good system for linebackers that breeds tackle efficiency, which really helps obviously for IDP purposes. So I think if I had to choose one Eagles linebacker for this season, it might actually be TJ Edwards, just because I think he brings a different skill set than what Nicolby Dean and Kaiser White, I think, are more comparable to one another. So I think one of them kind of cancels the other out, whoever ends up winning. And TJ Edwards might actually be the one to stay on the field and play those run gaps and eat up tackles that way, while Kaiser White or Nicolby Dean is the guy that is roaming the field a little bit more in coverage. So
yeah, I'm in agreement. If I was going to take an Eagles linebacker, it's going to be Edwards. Familiarity with the defense. He called the plays last year, so I think that carries over. I have him as my LB 27. There's other guys I think I'd rather have. So I don't know if I'm actually higher or lower, not sure, but like if I'm in a draft and say I'm looking at you know, if you're in a draft and I'm looking at like David Long, Demario Davis, TJ Edwards, you know, Drew Tranquil, Tremaine Edmonds, if I'm looking at that, I'm probably going to go a little bit safer, especially in redraft. So, you know, I'd probably take someone like David Long, who I have a feeling, you know, as long as he's healthy, he's staying on the field. I know that for a fact, or at least close to it. Or I'm taking Demario Davis just because, you know, Demario Davis is leaving the field. You know, I'm probably taking a little bit more of a safer situation there. But, you know, at that point, hopefully, if you're looking at that group, hopefully you're looking at your LB 3, 4, or 5, maybe at that point. So if you believe in him, then yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with Edwards, and I think he's going to be the one that is probably going to stay on the field.
Nice. Well, let's wrap up. And I know, Jorge, you're saying, wait, wrap up. There's 2 teams left in the NFC East. I'm going to say that Washington, shockingly, I don't say there's a ton of position battles. I know Chase Young still questionable for week 1 potentially. I kind of let down with Chase Young. I'm sorry. I don't want to go on a tangent about him, but I just feel disappointed. Like, was so hype after that rookie season. It's just been blah. Now, injury aside, but even before the injury, I mean, he had pockets of success, but as a whole, it was just But I will say, shockingly, I'm decently optimistic or excited to watch the New York Giants defense, from Leonard Williams to Justin Ellis, Dexter Lawrence, and then Ojulari. It's in the middle there where, with Blake Martinez coming back from the ACL, Tate Crowder stepped up last year and had a good year. But Tate Crowder's Tate Crowder. Now, if you guys love Tate Crowder, I apologize. It's not meant to knock him. But Micah McFadden is extremely interesting to me, especially under a Wink Martindale system. John, are we going to talk about Micah McFadden by week 3?
I mean, at least by season's end, right? I think, yeah, maybe early on. I don't think Tate Crowder is like a very good player, unfortunately to say. Yeah, it's, you know, which is sad. He's an NFL player, so he's good, but he compared to his peers, I don't think he is. And I think you hit the nail on the head there, Nate, with McFadden in the Wink Martindale system, because McFadden kind of showed that ability to be an effective blitzer and to do it consistently while he was at Indiana. It was something like 124 blitz attempts last year, and he racked up 32 pressures and 8 sacks over there. Did it the year before. He had 26-5. So, you know, he's a good fit for that team. I think more so than what Tate Crowder could provide in a similar role there. And I think it allows Blake Martinez to kind of stay home a little bit and just play that typical off-ball linebacker role. So there's room there for McFadden to carve himself out a role. And I think more so than, you know, if you can get Tate Crowder off the field, I think that's a good thing for your NFL defense.
I do too. And on that sweet note of telling Tate Crowder how bad he is and he's better off not being on the field.
Next week, our guest, Tate Crowder.
Tate Crowder coming on. Tate Crowder's mother will join us, where she talks about John Macri ad nauseum. But I can't thank you enough, John, for coming on. It's like I said, there's not enough superlatives to talk about your work over at PFF. It's amazing, and it was an honor to have you join us. I hope you had a good time.
I really did. I appreciate you guys saying that and for inviting me on as well. I was happy to do it, and I had a great time. This was fun, and I'm always happy to talk IDP, and especially with some great minds like yourself. So thank you guys. I really appreciate that.
Wow.
Thanks, man.
And Nate.
And me, but whatever. someone's got to be here to hit the old go live button and hit the drop
and mess up the ending.
That's Jorge. So
Yeah, that's what I do. I mess up the ending. That's my role.
He credit, but for Jorge and Mike and our guest John Macri, I'm Nate Markham. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.